GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show that never gets ghosted. Unlike your text asking you up, I'm your host, Jay Hamilton. It's Saturday, March the 8th. And because it's Saturday, that means we're back with the Milk Road Pro research team. That's right, I'm talking about Kyle, Martin, and Adrian in the house. Why? Because these guys have got the best alpha in the space because all they do all day, every day is think about crypto investing. Now, today's episode was recorded on Tuesday, March the 4th. In this episode, we talk about, is this the top? What is going on in markets? Why is the pain continuing? Why are we not seeing the bump and the rise that we're all expecting? The boys have a great take on what you can expect short term and long term. We also talk about the state of Ethereum, some excited changes happening in Ethereum's leadership. Also, some tech changes are coming. We're going to break that all down for you. And then we're going to wrap with Kyle's thesis on why Coinbase could become a $1 trillion company. Currently, market cap sits around 50 billion. So that would be a 20x from here if they made it to a $1 trillion company. You guys are going to want to tune into the end to hear that thesis and hear the boys kind of get into a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of an argument, a little bit of disagreements on some stuff. But that's what we love here at Milk Road is challenging each other. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Definitive, the advanced trading platform on every chain, and Coinshift, powering top corporate treasuries with their yield-bearing stablecoin CSUSDL. If you guys don't know them, you're going to hear about them later on in the show. Without further ado, let's hear from the boys at Milk Road Pro.
Gentlemen, welcome back. Another pro research meeting here in the books. It's been a wild week. I feel like I can say that every week in this space, but it actually has been a wild freaking week. This weekend was completely nuts. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the crypto reserve, although we're recording ahead of the crypto summit. So probably more information will be out on that summit by the time this goes live. For free people, of course, pro people, you get to see this the day that we record it. So if you're not already pro, go pro, because then you get the alpha early. And then we're going to talk about, have we topped? Just a little bit of discussion here on the markets. Like, is this it? Are we going to a bear market? There's a lot of discussion around this right now. And then we'll get into some stuff around Ethereum. There's a bunch of upgrades and things going on there. And then Coinbase, sort of my thesis on Coinbase in the long term. What do you guys want to start with? What should we discuss first?
Oh, we got to start with crypto reserve. Crypto reserve is this the hot news right now. Okay, so let's let me share my screen and pull up Trump's tweet. I'm sure everybody's seen it at this point, but just in case anybody hasn't actually seen it, let me share this. Okay, so Trump tweeted over the weekend. I think he tweeted this on Sunday. Do you guys remember?
Yeah.
Was it Sunday? I think it was Sunday.
Yeah.
And he said that he was going to start a crypto strategic reserve, including XRP, Solana, and ADA. And that's all he said. And then he followed up with another tweet that said, "Oh, and obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum." And then this is the best. He said, "I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum." Classic Trump. Thanks, Trump. So the conversation that I really would love to have is, I think it's quite obvious why Bitcoin should be in a strategic reserve. Bitcoin is going to be digital gold. The US holds a lot of gold in Fort Knox as part of their strategic reserve currently. Well, if you believe that Bitcoin is going to be digital gold, it would make a lot of sense to sell some of your existing gold and reallocate to Bitcoin. So I think everybody gets that. And the reaction to Trump's announcement would suggest that everyone agrees with that. The part that now is come into question, and there's a lot of people discussing on crypto Twitter, and is, okay, why put these other assets in there? Why put XRP, Solana, ADA, and Ethereum in there? Does it make sense to have other crypto assets in there? Which I think is a very interesting conversation. And would love to hear what you guys think. If you think these other assets should or will be in there. I mean, it's tough to speculate, but yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they will be, according to his tweets. I think that a lot of people are kind of mixing up what a reserve is. This isn't a sovereign wealth fund. They're not doing this to invest and make profits. They're not selling this at some point to get put back into dollars. a reserve for a government is the same as like they have foreign currency reserves, right? They have commodity reserves. And these are just hedges for the government in case supply crunches happen for copper, for example, or silver or gold, right? And they need that to, build whatever they're building, right? If all of a sudden those commodities, their oil or whatever, like if all of a sudden these commodities that are important for the economies to run, if something were to happen to where those commodities are made or happen to the price for whatever reason, then they still have a reserve on US soil that they can use to like keep the government in the US going. That's why they have that. Foreign currencies, same thing, right? They have global trade, et cetera. And if all of a sudden, the yen or the peso or whatever just goes through the roof up or down, they're hedged on that because they own a bunch of these currencies. They're not speculating that these currencies will go up or these commodities will go up. They're just there in case wild price fluctuations happen. And if in case that happens, they're not impacted because they already own it. And so it doesn't matter if it goes up or down. And so people just keep to thinking that this is being done to like invest, and that's not it. It's a completely different thing. So like remove the investing mindset out. That's not what this is for. Okay. This is a reserve. And so it makes sense to have Bitcoin, right? Because again, similar reasons to gold, et cetera. And I think it does make sense to have L1 tokens because I think, at least in my brain, and I think this is what they're planning for is we believe that the world is going to move on chain, right? And in order to build on chain or to transact on chain, what do you need? You need the token of blockchains, right? Of L1 blockchains. So Ethereum, you need ETH if you are going to build on Ethereum. You need ETH if you are going to transact on ETH, right? And so for a government that might move their financial system on top of, let's say, Ethereum, for example, well, you probably should have that token in case it goes up like crazy or whatever. You need to have that. Just like you were going to build the whole economy using oil, you probably should have a reserve of oil just in case something happens, right? And so I think we're still so early in crypto that we don't know which chains the global financial system is going to move on to, right? The global financial system is fucking massive and it's going to go on a bunch of chains, not one, right? And same with the global commerce, right? Like every financial instrument, payments and financial assets, et cetera, is all going to move on chain. It's not all going to move on Bitcoin and it's not all going to move on ETH. And it would be stupid to think that, right? Now, do I think it's going to move on XRP or ADA? Like, in my opinion, probably not, right? But like, who knows, right? Like, we actually don't know because it's still so early in crypto that we don't really know. And I know crypto Twitter has their opinions on these assets. And look, I think Cardano is nothing but a grift. I think Charles Hoskinson's a bum. And I think everything Cardano's doing is an absolute joke. Okay. So, like, don't get me wrong, but I think
Oh,
it
I
will be
can't wait to see the comments after that.
but like that could change, right? And I just think all we know is that the world is moving on chain, right? That to me is pretty obvious. And so if that's happening, you probably want to own the currencies that allow you to build and launch smart contracts and transact on that. And so like I wouldn't be surprised if this crypto reserve has not just ETH, Sol, XRP, and Cardano, but maybe even other L1s. Now, which ones I don't know, right? Like probably not BNB because that's a China coin, and I don't think Trump likes China, and so like they probably just won't hold that one. Probably Tron, same thing. That's a China coin, so like they might not there either. I'm not sure. Depends how strategic they're trying to get here, but I would imagine it's a smart idea to hold any L1 token at the chance that it all of a sudden becomes a legit powerhouse. It's like they hold a lot of foreign currencies for emerging markets. They are not powerhouse countries, so there's no need really to hold the currency. And a lot of people in developed countries be like, well, that country is a joke. It's got a tiny GDP. It's not really building anything like China's building or US is building, but they still go and hold those currencies, right? Just in case. And so I think the same thing is true here. These are just economic digital states. And it's like, in case one of those becomes the thing that everyone starts to build on, like you might want to hedge your bet and hold some of that. And so that's also why I don't think they're holding any like Aave or Maker or like DeFi tokens, because this isn't an investment. They're not investing in businesses, right? They're hedging on currencies in case one of these economic systems becomes something big and important. And so my guess is Bitcoin and ETH are the biggest ones because by market cap, they're the biggest. And like by developer activity and apps, they're the biggest. And then I think they're holding XRP, Solana, and ADA because one, it's American made. And so they want to promote Americanism and things being built in America. And then ultimately, I think they're just holding L1 tokens because that's just what you should do if the world's all going to move on chain.
And let me bring out the conspiracy theory. David Sachs, the
Okay.
crypto czar, is certainly invested into Bitwise via his venture firm Craft Ventures. And the biggest holdings of Bitwise are BTC, ETH, Sol, XRP, and ADA. So we know Trump loves his deals and he supports his buddies. So this could have also been a little bit of reason.
Yeah, but like, see, this is the thing where people. So I got two comments on that. One, there's also what are the top 6 tokens in all of crypto by market cap, right? Excluding stablecoins and excluding the China coins. It's the 5 you just listed, 6 you just listed off, right? It's Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, Cardano, and Solana. Those are the biggest coins. And so, of course, those are in Bitwise, number one. Of course, they should be in the reserve because they're just the biggest ones, right? It's not for any other reason other than that, right? But people will make up other reasons, but like ultimately it's that. The other thing is like, I don't want someone to make decisions about crypto that isn't an investor in crypto or building in crypto, right? So people always are like, oh, David Sachs shouldn't be making decisions here because he owns Sol and he invested in Sol and he owns Bitwise. And it's like, what do you want here? Like, imagine putting someone in place to make decisions about crypto that's never owned or used crypto. That makes no sense to me, right? Like, you want someone who's really involved in the crypto space to be the one probably making decisions about crypto, right? Like, to me, that just makes complete sense. But everyone just kind of likes to think that everyone's scamming everyone, right? And I just think I want the smartest people in position to do this. And the smartest people are the ones that obviously invested in this stuff in the early days, you know? Now, to be fair, he did tweet out that he sold his Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, like the liquid amounts. He can't sell his investment in Bitwise. He's a private company. And so, like, he did the best he could do. But otherwise, like, yeah, is he still an LP in these things? Sure. But like, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be that, you know?
Yeah, but
So,
nobody's perfect, and there still can be a conflict of interest. And when you choose these cryptocurrencies, why not those with the most traction? If you're thinking about a SUI, for example, a transaction count, and having something like a move-based blockchain also in the reserve, that would be better diversification than just taking the 6 biggest ones or 5 biggest ones.
agreed. But I think it's also like, what does that do to the markets of those that are so small? They're like these, like, they just launched. Like, imagine, as much as I believe in Move be the next big thing, like these things launched like last year. And so, like, one, if they were to announce that they were doing this, that's pretty crazy. And also, you got to remember that the thing with Cardano and XRP and Solana, et cetera, is there's a little bit more decentralization in who holds these tokens because they've been around just for so much longer. Like, don't get me wrong, still think Cardano's a scam, but it, it has a lot more decentralized holders in terms of just like there's a lot more holders than something like Sui or whatever Move one that just launched like 4 days ago. You know, like probably they can't do those because they're owned 90% by the team still, right? But all these other ones have been around for close to 10 years now. It's like, okay, these things are a little bit better off. The team still holds a bunch and dumps on people, but like it's a lot less than the others, you
Free
know?
XRP.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. So I don't know. You can't really do this with a token that's worth $1 billion. It doesn't make sense, you know? There's, I don't know, 100 L1s at this point. You can't do them all, but you might as well do ones that have some sort of traction, right? The other point actually I heard the other day was um, if you look at Cardano and XRP, who mainly holds these? It's Americans, right? Like anytime you talk to someone from the US that like isn't really in crypto, they're always like, "Hey, I still hold like some Bitcoin and I hold like some XRP. Like, should I
They
sell
love
this thing?"
XRP.
Yeah,
They
they're like,
love
"What should I do with it?"
XRP.
Or Cardano. I always hear all the time with people that they're like, I just hold this Cardano. I've been holding it since 2017. Like, what should I do with it?" And so like I got a feeling Trump and the team there just knows like a lot of Americans hold these two tokens. So like, maybe we should include it, you know? Which to me I don't love. This is obviously very grifty and it's super annoying. But the idea of holding a bunch of L1 tokens does make sense to me. Do I agree it should be XRP and Cardano? Like, I obviously don't because I think that those are useless projects for the most part. But not everyone thinks that way, and so I got to like keep my bias and my thoughts aside and just think, here's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get it like exposure to hedge in case any of these L1s really become the future of the financial world, right? So anyway, that's my take on it.
If you're only trading on centralized exchanges, then you're not going to make it. The best traders know the alpha is on chain. Definitive, founded by Coinbase alums, lets you trade any token on Solana, Base, or any chain all in one platform. What makes Definitive different is its advanced order types. You can execute limit, TWAP, and stop loss completely on chain. Plus, you get the best prices as your order is routed instantly through every DEX and liquidity pool, getting you up to 19 times lower fees. Trusted by funds, whales, and the milkman himself, now you too can trade like a pro. Milk Road listeners get a tasty glass of milk with zero fees on your first 25,000 at milkroad.definitive.fi. Meet CSUSDL, the stablecoin built for institutions and DAOs. Don't just hold basic stablecoins, earn yield, all without compromising security. Backed by regulated real-world assets and secured with institutional-grade risk management by our friends at Stakehouse Financial, put your treasury cash to work, earning native yield and protocol rewards. Built by the team behind Coinshift, which is trusted to manage over 1 billion in business treasuries on chain, including Aave, Gitcoin, and hundreds of leading institutions, CYCSUSDL is gaining traction at milkroad.com/Coinshift.
It's starting to feel like a huge Ponzi we have ever seen.
Yeah,
And like,
I do agree.
and like for me, when we are talking about crypto reserves, I think of it as now we use gold, and what else should we use to kind of back up our dollars that are out there? So gold is fine. And now, like, are we really considering these like Cardano, I don't know, Ripple? Like, no. Should we consider ETH, Sol? No. Like, we don't know if all these layer ones will be here in like 5-10 years. These are all experiments. We are all like holding them, we love them, we use them, that's fine. But those are still like very early days protocols who are like, you have a plane and we are doing different things and like changing the parts while we are still flying. And like, if I'm country and I should think about like, what assets should I hold that like my dollars are backed with some real value, then I should probably choose like something that's like very secure, and I'm not risking that there will be some client bug or something that will send everything to zero. And like with Bitcoin, it's a different story. The code is done, and like we all agree what Bitcoin is good for, and that's fine. I agree. Let's use Bitcoin, but don't use anything else. It's starting
But
to feel like all these conversations we are having, it's like, I don't know, if we would have this conversation 3 years ago, we would be like, no way, you should be grateful if we are even considering Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
now we are talking about Ripple and Cardano, like,
but
really?
Martin, remember that we're not holding this to back the dollar. That's not what this reserve means, right?
I agree
it's
with
just a reserve of assets.
I agree with Kyle's commodity thesis, right? Like, to call it that. Like, if we're considering that these are commodities and they're going to run the whole financial system, and you need the token of the blockchain in order to execute, then I agree with that. I just don't think we're there yet, though. That's
Yeah,
the issue.
I do
Yeah.
agree.
Like, so to
It's like
me,
For ETH, I
like,
think
big-
we're probably there. But probably not,
maybe,
not with the other three. I
but
do
why
agree with
not
that.
wait? Like, there's no rush on it. That's the thing, right? Like, like, I think, to me, here's the play. And let me just say, I am recording immediately after this call with Jake Travinsky, who is probably the best crypto lawyer, policymaker. He's been involved in Washington. He was the lead counsel at Compound. So go listen to that episode, because we're going to really break this down from a legal perspective. But to me, I think he might be overswinging. So he's saying, hey, I'm going to put in 5. I think he might even go up to 10 tokens. I wouldn't be surprised, because once it comes to Congress and actually pushing this through, I think it's going to be very difficult to do anything other than Bitcoin. And so I think he's overswinging. We're only going to get Bitcoin in the end, and it might set up for later down the road 5 years down the road, as you're saying, Kyle, Ethereum, Solana are proven to be the chains that the financial system is on. It makes sense to hold those commodities the same way it makes sense to hold the currency of another country that you do trade with constantly. Well, you're now going to start doing trade constantly with the Ethereum network or the Solana network. Okay, I can get behind that. I don't think we're anywhere close to that yet.
Yeah, I think it's like, I do agree. Maybe it is a bit early, although these things are, multi-billion-dollar assets. Like, how early is it? XRP's 100 billion, Cardano's somehow 30
Yeah,
billion. Like,
but
so like, it's not
is
that early in the
a
grand scheme
fair
of things.
valuation?
But it's not up to them to decide that, right? I just think they're trying to send a signal like, hey, crypto is going to be a thing. We're going on chain. And so we want to have a reserve of the assets. And like, look, why does the Coinbase 50 hold XRP and Cardano? Why does the Bitwise thing, like all the best and most reputable companies in the world still hold these assets in their like things? It's because it's market cap weighted. That's just what you do, right? It's just how financial instruments typically work. And so I don't know, it's not up to the side, but I also think like when all the other, like there was a time when we only had one currency in the world or like a few currencies, right? And then all of a sudden we started to create all these fiat currencies. Every country started their own currencies. The US just held a bunch of random different currencies because that's just what you needed to do. You didn't know which country was going to make it, right? Back in the day, we had no idea. Was North Korea going to make it? Or was like, do you know what I mean? Like, was Germany with what they were doing back in the day going to be a big thing? Turned out they like completely screwed up and their currency went to zero, right? And they had to reset it back in whatever that was, the 30s or something. But they didn't know that at the time. In hindsight, it seems obvious. But back then we didn't know. And so they had to just hold all these currencies just in case, And so like, I don't know. To me, I think that's probably what's going on, but maybe I'm just overthinking it. And it is definitely grifty. There's no doubt that, which is what leads me to our next conversation. I don't know if anyone we'll let Jake Travinsky give the real lowdown on what's happening there. But like what this feels like, I put out a tweet saying, I was like, and I'm just kind of thinking about this cycle or the markets, crypto specifically. And from crypto's perspective, there's a lot of top signals that are existing right now that make me go, okay, it feels like the cycle should be cooked, right? And I say that because you have like the Trump and the Libra token that were launched, like that is super toppy, right? Like how much more high profile can you get than presidents around the world launching a meme coin, right? Like that is about as top signal as you can possibly get. You've got pumped up fund revenue just completely cooked. We talked about this last week, I think. It very much looks like the chart of OpenSea, right? Which is we had this thing that was like all the excitement of crypto that now is going close to zero. Will that return? And then you got whatever the frig Kanye West is doing, and like there's just so much grift in this space right now. You got the Bybit hack. It just feels like from a top signal perspective, which is more like the weird stuff, the non-objective things. That just feel very toppy to me. And then even this crypto reserve and like all the bullshit that Trump is doing feels so toppy. But then you look at the macro side of things and it doesn't feel like a top, or it doesn't look like a top to me. It's like the ISM just past 50. That usually signals we're like mid-cycle and like really going to move into the more important, like faster, more volatile part of the cycle. Global liquidity has not really had its big move yet. And so I think there's still unfinished business there. Financial conditions around the world are still pretty tight and they're like slowly getting less tight, but that's taking time. And so like from a macro perspective, it looks like we're not topped. From a top signals of just things happening in the space, it feels like we're definitely at the top. And so it's like, well, where are we? What are we? I'll give my opinion in a sec, but just do you guys have any strong opinions on this take?
Maybe also crypto specifically, total stablecoin market cap is growing and growing. That's typically not a sign of a top.
I don't think that indicator is relevant anymore. Actually, that's a good. So that used to be the sign, because back in the day you couldn't do anything with stablecoins. So like the sign that the bull market was continuing was people buying stablecoins, because that's how you'd get your fiat into crypto world, and then you'd go deploy that in ETH or whatever. But remember, now we have a bunch of people just actually using stablecoins like for payments and things. And so the growth of stablecoins to me is now its own metric. And I don't think that it's actually a sign of bull or bear markets. I actually think stablecoins will grow through the entire next bear market we have. I don't think that metric's I think it's no longer relevant. I don't know if anyone else agrees on that one.
I agree with that. I just recorded yesterday with Torun Gupta, founder of Coinshift, and we were talking all about. He did a deep analysis on stablecoins, and it's being used by Argentinians to hedge against their inflation. These aren't investors. It's being used
Yeah, they
by
don't care about a
merchants
bull or
around
bear
the
market.
world to send money. It's being used by, a kid in the US to send money to his grandma. Like, it's not, its use case is definitely different than investing and
Changed. Yeah.
speculating now. Yeah.
How much percent of the stablecoin market cap is used for payments? Any idea?
That we don't know.
I don't know.
That's a good
That,
question.
yeah, it's a great question. Yeah.
But I think the clear thing is it's more and more and more, right?
Yeah.
Over time. Now, how much until it's the majority? Like, I don't know that we can even, I don't know how to figure that one out. Anyone else, though, thoughts on top or market in general?
I think we are overthinking everything, and we are just like finding reasons to why markets are not pumping and our bags are still in red for most people. And I think it's still pretty simple, and like we need that liquidity back in the markets, and it's still not there. We are just, it might feel like kind of boring times, nothing's really happening, Trump launching meme coin, then on Sunday night, like Trump sharing tweeting about like crypto reserves. Like that's all we are talking about, like week by week. And it's like these are topics for the sake of the conversation, but it's not like I don't know, like I'm pretty sure that we haven't topped yet, and we are just now getting rid of all the paper hands. And once like most of the people will leave and sell and everything, then like maybe in 3-6 months we will have more liquidity flowing in, and then when we will see prices going up.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of just a deleveraging event, which honestly is actually very good. I know it doesn't feel very good right now, but like deleveraging event means we can continue to go higher for longer. And I think what happened was in November when Trump won, there's all these people here that were in crypto that were like, just went levered to the nines. Like they just went max risk, bought everything. Had so much leverage because they expected that when Trump won, all these institutions were going to come in and buy our bags, right? That was like the narrative in November, if everyone remembers how pumped everyone was. And what happened was no one came. There was no new capital that came in. There was no new liquidity in the markets, and just no institutions actually came in and started buying crypto yet. Yes, except for Bitcoin, right? Obviously, Michael Saylor kept buying. There was some buys from like the sovereign wealth funds and some banks and things. Like they've put on some there on the Bitcoin, but basically nothing else. And so I think what's happening here is we're sort of just in combination with the confusion and uncertainty around what Trump's doing with tariffs and everything else. I think we're also just kind of deleveraging from everyone being levered to the tits in November. And I think that makes sense because I don't know why everyone expected that because Trump won November, whatever it was, 4th, like institutions are just going to start piling billions of dollars in like the next day. Like, of course that wasn't going to happen. Like
What?
yeah, right. Like
What?
it takes these institutions a long time. Plus, like they weren't going to do it in December because they all take 2 weeks off, right? For Christmas and holidays. And it's like January, they're kind of just getting back to work. They're like, okay, let's set up our committees, right? They got to get all this stuff approved. Like it takes months and months and months, especially to deploy capital of like billions and billions of dollars. And so like um, I, I think even today, it doesn't make sense that they be doing it. It's going to take some time, right? And so I think we just got over levered off of everyone just getting too excited. So do I think that we're in a bear market though, and we're going to be like the bear markets in crypto are like a year plus long? I, there's no way that by March of 2026 we're still going down. Imagine that March 2026, like a couple months before um, the midterms, and markets are still going down. That doesn't make sense to me with everything that's going on here in this space. So, like to me, it just feels like a deleveraging event, which like ultimately is good, although obviously shitty if you didn't happen to have any, you didn't take any profits, which I didn't. And if you don't have any cash to like be buying here, if I had a shit ton of cash that I could still be buying, that'd be great. I obviously dollar cost average, but I wish I had like a big amount. But otherwise, yeah, I don't think the cycle's cooked by any means.
Yeah, I think two things that stand out to me. One is we should have expected Trump to create a lot of this uncertainty coming to office.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that wasn't more of a theme when he won. Obviously, he was going to do a 180 shift on everything. Obviously, he was going to do what Trump does and like be a um, a bully that just like yells and screams and creates a lot of noise in order to cause a lot of confusion because he's a master negotiator and that gives him a lot of leverage when he's negotiating. So like we kind of should have expected that. We should have expected tariff stuff to happen sooner. I don't know why we didn't. So like I think that has caused market-wide uncertainty. Like all markets are struggling right now. It's not just crypto, right? Like it's across the board, and we all should have expected that. So that was kind of a miss. But now that we see that, that's not going to happen forever. Like he even knows, you said yourself, March 26th midterm, he needs to win the midterm. He cares so much about that. He's going to make sure he does. That's long enough away that what he does right now, nobody's going to remember, right? As long as we get higher by then. So he is super strategic. He's creating this uncertainty now so that he can get the deals he wants, but he wants the certainty and he wants the markets to do well. So he'll solve that. I have no doubt there. And then the other big thing is we don't have liquidity, right? QE has not started yet, right? So I recorded with Jamie Coots from Real Vision the other day on Friday, and he said he predicts 20 trillion in liquidity still coming in this cycle, peaking sometime Q1 2026. We're at about 100 trillion right now. He thinks we're going to get to 120 trillion. So like, if that happens, boom, everything's going up, and we're just not there yet. That hasn't started yet. So we're just all impatient. Just be patient.
And remember, this happened in 2021 as well, right? Like we had this it was even worse actually in 2021. I think Bitcoin came back by 50%, right? Like Bitcoin still isn't even down 30% yet. Imagine a world like this sucks right now with like ETH down 50%, Sol down 60% or close to 60%, Bitcoin down 25 or whatever it's gone down. Imagine doubling that and Bitcoin going down 50%, not 25, right? That means Bitcoin more like the 50, 60,000 range. Imagine that kind of pain is possible, right? I mean, it happened in 2021, but it feels like that's kind of what we're doing here is kind of a deleveraging event. How low we go, honestly, no idea. But I think you just keep buying these dips because I think there's no way that we've bottomed here. And ultimately, as annoying it is of what Trump's doing, I know people are very frustrated. Like, I still think that they're doing all the right things and they're going to do a really good job here. And so like, I'm not bearish by any means. But it's just, there's got to be some pain they're changing so much in how the US government works and how the economy is going to work. Like there's a lot of change and that generally means pain.
Yeah, but it would be a big surprise if BTC goes below 70K because the all-time high typically is a good bottom.
Yeah, agreed.
Did anybody look? I haven't really looked at this, but it seems like okay. So 70 was before. When we went on our way up, we blasted past 80. We didn't really have any buying around 80. We went from like 70 to 75, and then we jumped to like 90. So we never really saw if 80 could be a floor. And over the weekend, what I sort of saw was, oh wow, a lot of buying happened around 80. We got as low as like 78, I think. I'm wondering if 80 has a strong floor moving forward. I don't know if any of you guys looked at that.
Yeah, I mean, like 70. Honestly, there's nothing. There is no floor. There's nothing until you get down to 72 or whatever. So we'll see if we could free fall down.
Traders would say the CME gap had to be closed.
yeah, right. Which happened. I mean, it's probably tough to get that low when you have Saylor still pumping billions into the market. So as long as he keeps doing that, we're good. The moment he stops, though, we're fucked.
Saylor said that Bitcoin's going to 200 trillion market cap. Don't worry, everybody. We're all good.
The key for me is ultimately you don't want to trade around this stuff. Like no one knew that this deleveraging event was going to happen. You could have maybe guessed. And I mean, we did call a pullback was going to happen when it did happen. Did I sell anything? No, because again, don't think the cycle's over, right? We'll take profits when we think the cycle's over. Don't think we are. So for now, you just keep adding. And you kind of treat this as a treat more than anything else rather than getting scared. That's my best advice here. Because look, you could sell right here in case ETH happens to go lower or Bitcoin goes lower down to 72 or whatever. But like, look what happened on Sunday. One little piece of news can reignite the markets, right? If all of a sudden we get a little bit of liquidity, China announces, oh, we're going to do trillion stimulus. Like, look at how fast we went from, whatever we were at 70 something to like back up to 96. And you're going to miss that move if you're a sideline. So like, I just don't think it makes sense to be sidelined. You just kind of got to ride this stuff out, right? Unless you're a pro trader, then hey, all the best to you.
The fear and greed index of 10 is not the point in time to sell, typically.
yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, bye.
All right. Speaking of change, let's jump into a little conversation around Ethereum. Martin, I'll let you start things off. But a lot's going on in the Ethereum world right now. I know the numbers, the chart doesn't look good on Ethereum, but fundamentally, and like what's happening in Ethereum is starting to actually, we're seeing a lot of change. There's been a lot of shitty things going on in the space with the foundation, et cetera. But they're making some moves. So Martin, why don't you walk us through kind of what's going on there?
Yeah. Do you want to share screen? Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, big changes coming to EF, Ethereum Foundation. And I wish more people and more attention is on these news rather than, Trump doing his things. And we had a conversations last year where we kind of, Ethereum has been often criticized for, being slow, and the leadership was kind of questioning whether it's still good enough and if they progress enough and if they are kind of listening to market feedback. And also like Ethereum doesn't really have any kind of person who is communicating like all the things like, Tolly for Solana or Mert for Solana. So we don't really have anyone in Ethereum. And I feel now like this weekend, a lot of things changed in Ethereum land. And yeah, first one here is we have a new co-executive directors for EF. One of them is I don't know how to pronounce her name. I guess he's Asian woman, and he has been around. Like I believe she is 7 years working for Ethereum Foundation, and now she's stepping up and becoming executive director alongside with Thomas Stensak. That's the founder of Nethermind, which is client. Ethereum's client, and now I believe they have around like 200 people or something. So he was able to build a pretty huge and successful company. And he was also kind of working on top of Ethereum because he was working building a client for Ethereum. So he has also kind of alignment and relationship with Ethereum, and they are now bringing those two people who are becoming like executive directors. And it feels like some people are saying like 2 people in charge might not be ideal, but it feels like the Wei Wang might be a person with doing R&D stuff, and she has been in EF for 7 years, so she knows people, she knows how internal processes work there. And bringing Thomas, he can bring like more external views and new ideas, and like he knows how it is to build a company. He's kind of a leader, and he also feels like he could be the guy who is kind of communicating what's going on and listening, more feedback from the community. And he could be the guy, he could be Mert of Ethereum,
It's gotta be bald
that's
though.
one. Yeah, that's one huge update.
Danny's the Mert.
Yeah, then he's back too. He was off for a couple of months or maybe a year or something. He was the guy who kind of led the development of Beacon Chain. And now he's coming back, but he's not joining EF, but he is joining Etherealize, which is sort of another not fun, but like organization who should help Ethereum to get into more institutional kind of spectrum of the market, help to figure out some technicalities, and trying to fill the gap between like Ethereum core devs and institutions and like more bigger sophisticated players, and like fill the gap between. So it feels like also we are getting those smart people back to Ethereum and trying to improve and help Ethereum to adopt to like more outside real world is obviously very positive. And one more tweet, which was maybe the most bullish out of them all, and that's Vitalik tweeting about the next upgrade, which is we are gonna see a picture upgrade, which is going live probably like 1 month or maybe 2 months. And among other things, we are gonna increase blob's target from 3 to 6. And then what Vitalik was saying in his tweet is that in the next upgrade, which is called Fusaka, we are gonna even increase that blob target from 6 to 48, which is 8-time increase. And previously, it was supposed to increase just from 6 to 9, and now from 6 to 48.
But
So it's
those that
a
understand,
huge.
for those that don't understand, blobs is basically the data availability that Ethereum has, which is what all the L2s use to post their data. And so the lower that number that Martin's talking about means the more expensive it is for L2s. The higher that number means the cheaper it gets for L2s. And Base is basically beginning to max out Ethereum's DA. Not fully yet, but like they're on pace to do that. And so Base is basically innovating faster than Ethereum is. And so we need Ethereum to sort of catch up. Otherwise, there's a chance like Base moves to Celestia or somewhere else. And so I think Vitalik's starting to understand that. And Ethereum starting to kind of get their butt in gear and start to create products which are more suitable for these L2s.
Yeah.
The
I'm
other
happy
thing,
that they are. Yeah, sorry, go
you
ahead.
go and then I'll explain. No, go for it.
So I wanted to say that it's nice to see that like Ethereum, and including Vitalik, they are reflecting the feedback and they see the market dynamics. Like, when you listen Jesse from Base, he's saying that they expect like 10x increase of the usage of Base. The same on WorldCoin. The main dev is saying like we expect like 10x increase of the usage there. So like Ethereum needs to like, okay, those are the biggest users of Ethereum's DA, and DA is going to be like the main revenue driver like in the future. We are not seeing it right now yet, but that's the future. And they are reflecting on that market feedback, and they are like listening the feedback from the main actors and main users, and it's making me bullish.
The other thing coming in this upgrade, which is massive for anyone who's ever traded on Ethereum, is they're getting rid of the swap approvals or token approvals. Sorry. So if you guys have ever traded on Ethereum, when you go to use like a DEX, you have to like click sign. You think that you've made the trade, but you haven't. You've just approved the use of the token in your wallet. Then you have to click and sign again to then swap it. If you use Solana, for example, you don't have to do that. It's a terrible UX. It's something we've had on Ethereum for 5 years, which makes zero sense. And finally, they've smartened up and are getting rid of that. So honestly, that's just such a big deal. And it's so stupid. I can't believe that thing was around for as long as it was. I get it can help people from getting their wallets drained, but like, yeah, it was just a terrible UX. So anyway, that's getting gone too. So yeah, they're starting to step up. I think, look, Ethereum's playing the long-term game. I think you got to realize that. They obviously are focused on proliferating, accelerating the L2 movement. And look, Base is absolutely cooking. They are the most vibrant ecosystem by far right now in this space, especially with Pumped Up Fund dying out. That's really crushing Solana, and Base just continues to cook. And so I think that's huge. As you said, World Chain, they actually do have a lot of real humans over there. And so like, we'll see what happens there. I think they're being incentivized to use that. So I don't know, like if they can really build something of substance, but like the main thing is, can Kraken, like the thing I'm looking for is, can Kraken, who launched their Inc. L2 this year, if that can have a breakout year like Base did last year, and we start to see not just one ecosystem flourishing, but more than one, that is my signal that, okay, the Ethereum roadmap is here and they've done it right. If we can't get another L2 to thrive like Bases, because really every other L2 basically sucks. And if we can't get someone else to really take off and thrive like Bases, then I'm actually starting to become very bearish. But if we can get someone else to get traction, because Base has traction and they're super legit. If we can just get that, then I'm super stoked. And I think Kraken will do that. I think their team has the ability, and then others will do it too. It's not just Kraken, but like that's just the one example that I think could be the breakout this year. So let's see. But Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else have any other thoughts on what's going on in the Ethereum world?
I don't think every other L2 sucks because basically DeFi started on Ethereum. They on Arbitrum. They had the innovation at first, but then most of the D apps, of course, expanded to Base as well. And Base is basically incentivized also for the airdrop farmers because there's a lot of people still hoping for the Base airdrop. We have Mantle, which is basically backed by Bybit, which recently got hacked, but they have a lot of traction. They have a very active DeFi ecosystem, new products coming up. So it's not only Base, and especially with Mantle, it's more popular in the Asian region.
Yeah,
So that
true.
is something I would also consider.
Yeah, I just like when you look at activity and stuff, just Base is just so far ahead of everyone else right now. And I guess what I mean by that, of course, there are other L2s that are doing things. What I really mean by that uh, is like innovation, right? Like every other L2 just has the same apps, right? Across it. It's all the same stuff. Base is the one that actually has different stuff. Finally, it's got Blackbird and it's got, Farcaster, and it's like it's actually doing stuff to like push this industry forward and bring in new people and new capital, whereas everyone else is just like bringing capital and users from one chain to the next chain and just like pulling people around and moving capital around. It's not bringing any net new capital. Base is the one that's really bringing in new devs, new capital, new users, new apps, and so that's what I really mean by like traction and something that really matters here. Everyone else is kind of doing all the same shit, but we'll see. Obviously, the good thing about L2s is there's a lot of them, and so like someone like Immutable could work out, or Sonium could work out all of a sudden. Like there's all these different things happening over there and experimenting. So we'll see. Okay.
But
We done on Ethereum?
how many innovations like do we need? Or like maybe we have
Yeah.
products out there, we just don't have users because like users are not coming to the blockchains, but we need to bring blockchains to the users. So like everyone
True.
will probably follow the Coinbase strategy and like, even Robinhood, I don't know, we use Revolut in Europe. So like everyone is incentivized to launch their own chain. And like that's how probably like next wave of people will be
Right.
onboarded.
Which I agree, which to me just means all the current L2s just like they go away. They're like, oh, thanks, you didn't really do much, get out of here. And then it's like Robinhood's L2, Kraken's L2, etc. They come and they dominate, and they just basically repurpose what all these other L2s did, and away we go. Like that's my thinking of how this plays out, if it works out that way. Or they, I don't know, maybe launch their own L1 or something. We'll have to see how that dynamic plays out. But I kind of agree. I think a lot of what all these other L2s are doing is just kind of wasted space, wasted time. I mean, it's all open source. So like what they're doing is leading to, more information and more code for the next dev that comes in. But ultimately, don't know if it's going to matter much. Okay, let's talk about our last subject, which is Coinbase. So I'm actually working on writing a pro report right now, and there's just some interesting things that came up as I was sort of like working through this, which is I want to kind of share a little bit of my thesis of why I think Coinbase is actually probably going to become a $1 trillion company in the next few years. And I don't say that lightly. Like it's not easy to become a $1 trillion company. There's not many of them, although there's becoming more and more. But if you think about the biggest companies in the world today, they are companies that not only just rode, but drove the internet trend, right? You have Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, right? These are all multiple $1 trillion companies. All of them are $2 trillion. Microsoft, I think, is $3 trillion right now. Maybe even Apple. I don't know today, depending on prices. But they are $2 to $3 trillion companies, right? The biggest companies in the world. Why are they the biggest companies in the world? Well, they didn't just help ignite the internet revolution, but they somehow remained relevant throughout that entire revolution. We're now 30 years or so into the internet, like the big part of the internet, maybe 35. All of these companies were around then. All of them built a breakout product back then and helped bring users online. And then throughout the different eras of the internet, whether that be the PC era, where we all use the internet on our computers, or the mobile era, where we all started to use it on our phones, and then the social era, and then now the AI era, each era, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft have continued to innovate and sort of like reinvent their companies, reinvent their products, whether by building or buying, and they stayed relevant through the entire 30 years, right? and they just kept adding on new services and new products and reinventing and some of their old products, disrupting some of their old products. Like Apple, you used to have an iPod, right? That went into your computer, and that's how you listen to music. And then they launched iTunes, right? And that connected into the iPod. Then they launched the iPhone, which then disrupted and got rid of the iPod, and iPods and all handheld music devices went away. And we just did it in our phone. And then they disrupted iTunes with Apple Music and so on and so forth, right? Like they just kept disrupting themselves, and they've just remained relevant the whole way through. And I think when you look at Coinbase's timeline, I know it's early days, but it's actually doing the same sort of thing. So like Coinbase started as just a Bitcoin service. You just like used to exchange your fiat money in the US and other countries for Bitcoin. But they noticed that there were these other tokens that were coming out, these alts, and so they started allowing that. And then they sort of moved into stablecoins, which they saw stablecoins are the main use case. This is the big thing in crypto today. And look who's front and center of it. Coinbase is once again, right? Coinbase was supposed to be just an exchange, a trading platform. That's what they've always been, except they're not. They now make 10% of their revenues from stablecoins because they own something like 50% of USDC, the fastest growing stablecoin last year, right? And then it's like, okay, these like economic states.
Do you know that they own 50% of USDC, or did you just throw out that number?
It's around that much. So we don't know. It's a private thing.
Yeah.
But based off the revenues they made in Q4, in 2024 from Circle, you can kind of like backtrack the numbers, and it's got to be
50%.
somewhere around 50. I don't know that it's actually 50, but it's somewhere around there. So let's say it's like 20, 30, 40, 50, somewhere like that. It's pretty high.
It's significant.
It's significant. Let's say that. So 10% of the revenues came from that, right? Which that's not who Coinbase was when they first started. And now it's like, okay, well, they're noticing that the world is moving on chain, right? Like DEX activity is catching up to centralized exchange activity. And so they are not a on-chain company. They are a centralized company. And so what have they done? They're basically disrupting Coinbase app with Base and Coinbase wallet, right? Like at some point, centralized companies might go to the wayside. Maybe not, I'm not sure. But they've already hedged that bet. And they're already starting to remove trading volume from Coinbase and putting it onto Base, right? But again, at least they're the ones doing it. They can capitalize on it. This is exactly what Apple did and Amazon did, et cetera. And so it's like every new thing that comes in the crypto world, Coinbase is front and center of it, right? It's like the number one L2 last year in 2024 was Base. The number one stablecoin last year was Circle. And then you look at, let's see if I have the chart up here. Just a couple of days ago, I don't have it up, so don't worry about it. But a couple of days ago, a month and a half ago, they launched the integration with Morpho, and Morpho at the time was at like 36 million in supply, so people taking out loans of USDC, and now it's up to 136 million in a month and a half, right? So it's gained 100 million in a month and a half. Previously, it only ever got to 35. So it's like everything Coinbase touches right now basically just turns to gold. And they seem to just keep reinventing themselves and being ahead of everything that comes out. And that's the exact trajectory that like Apple and Amazon and Microsoft did. And then Coinbase also has, I think it's $9 billion in cash. And so like they also can start to purchase companies and buy things, the next things, right? And so I just think as the world moves on chain, there's no one that is more positioned or better positioned than Coinbase to like ride that narrative, to push that or not narrative, but that revolution, let's call it, or that like migration. There's no one that's like better positioned to take advantage of that and remain relevant and stay on the forefront of that for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And to me, that's the companies you want to look for that, you know, you could have bought Apple, Amazon, Google, or Microsoft anytime over the last 30 years. It didn't matter if you bought them at the very top of the dot-com bubble or the very top of the financial crisis before it crashed, or the top of the like pre-COVID crash, or the post-COVID like boom that we had in 2021. Buy any four of those companies at that time, and you're up multiples today. And I think Coinbase is going to be that same sort of idea, where it's just one of those things that you just keep buying for the next decades, and it will continue to do well because they're just continuing to reinvent themselves. And like, if you compare from 2021 to today, Coinbase's revenues were 86% exchange volume. Okay. So just getting fees off people trading. Now that's down to 59%. They actually have revenues from so many different things: stablecoin revenue, blockchain revenue. So meaning staking. They have custodial revenue. They have a subscription service now. They have the base revenue. Like they have all these different forms of revenue that they keep creating. And so like they could basically turn off the fees if they needed to compete with Robinhood or something and have no fees on Coinbase app and instead find other ways to monetize it. And just no other companies really have that kind of power. So I just think they're set up so well to just like dominate for years to come. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that. I know there's a lot of competition, so maybe there's something else you guys see, but I see them as being the Apple or the Amazon of the on-chain world.
Apple is an interesting comparison because right now they are not very innovative anymore. They are kind of fed up, and there are smaller companies much more innovative with maybe even better products. But yeah, I certainly hope you are right as a Coinbase stock owner. But I also see a lot of competition and a lot of smaller companies doing this better, maybe with even less fees, using different protocols. And I hope, for the sake of decentralization, that a Coinbase won't be the number one winner and take it all.
But I mean, Coinbase is pushing everything into a decentralized world as well with Base and Coinbase Wallet, right? And so they're already trying to do that. So we'll see. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I am also bullish on Coinbase. Don't get me wrong, but I'm more bullish on that institutional kind of product lines they have rather than on retail, because I think what they do for retail, everyone will do the same. Everyone will offer like quite soon as well. So like Robinhood, Revolut, Venmo, like everyone is going to see what they did and how they become such a successful company, and they are gonna like, okay, so we are gonna like do the same thing because they are making money. We can do it too. We have a huge user basis, so we just need to bring all these products like closer to the users, so they don't leave our platform and download Coinbase and go there and start to using Coinbase.
Yeah.
And
Finish.
one more thing is, today all people use Coinbase, and we all know why, because the user experience is just better. And it's the main driver why people use Coinbase rather than, downloading MetaMask and like all these bullshit we need to do today. But like, this is going to be abstracted away, I believe. And I hope it's going to be resolve pretty soon. And like, even with ZK, you will be able to provide like, hey, this is my name, this is I can do KYC in a ZK way. So like, I am not really like giving you all my details. I'm just proving you that like I am older than 18 years old or something, and I will only generate ZK proof. Then like I will not be I won't need to write 24 words down, like, and remember my seed phrase or like store it somewhere. It's going to be resolved as well. So like, I think those are the kind of bear cases scenario. Not bear cases, because like Coinbase will still do well. I'm just not seeing the path towards like 1 trillion company.
Here's my thinking on this. Give me 1 second here. So you guys both kind of mentioned, competition, people that can do it because they have users or maybe cheaper. And this is my thinking. Amazon, the same situation happened. Everyone's like, well, wait till Walmart launches a store, and wait till X company, like every single retailer that was out there launches an online store. They all did it, but none of them could compete with Amazon because Amazon was a internet native company, right? So it was not trying to fit a square into a circle, right? It was an internet native company. And so like it could just think first principles. If I was to create an online store, what would I do? Starting from scratch. I don't need to have a store and a staff of all these people and blah, 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 right? It could just do it from the beginning. And so it was always one step ahead of Walmart and every other retailer that came out. And so thus only Amazon could do 1-day delivery. Walmart only just started doing that, right? Amazon's been doing that for like 20 years, right? And then it was like, well, Amazon created Prime, and it had the subscription service. Walmart never thought about that. And then inside the subscription service became the ability to like watch movies and like do all these other, like they just found more and more ways to make their products just way better because they had more than one product, right? And that's what I see with Coinbase is, yes, Robinhood can try to compete with Coinbase, but I think as they do that, Coinbase is already one step ahead of them and one step ahead. Like Robinhood's just trying to get more assets on their app, while Coinbase is already beginning to integrate into DeFi apps, right? And then so like Robinhood by next year starts to integrate into DeFi apps. And then by then, Coinbase already has the ZK stuff you're talking about, Martin, where they allow people to like use ZK, and like they're always one step ahead of every other company. And every company in fintech is going to be, I mean, they're faster than banks, but they're definitely slower than the crypto native companies, at least at doing the crypto native stuff. And same with like banks. I know they're all going to custody crypto and allow that kind of stuff. But again, they're going to be so slow. They're never going to compete with something like Coinbase, who is one, like smaller and scrappier, but two, actually crypto native. And so like they're not building what someone else built. If you're always building what like the leader's building, then you're always behind. And Coinbase has always stayed at the very, very forefront. And I think they're only picking up pace on that, which is the thing that makes me think they'll continue to sort of lead. Because you got to remember, the fintech companies, as great as they are, they're good UX. They just repurposed what banks do, but built it with a better UX. They didn't build anything on chain like what Coinbase is doing. And so I think they have a huge, and will continue to have a huge lead on that. And then because they have other revenue streams from things like stablecoins and Base, they can cut margins in areas that Robinhood can't, right? Like Robinhood doesn't have other revenue streams, whereas Coinbase does. And so I just think they have the power, and they'll do the thing like, no one saw Amazon going to launch AWS, right? Like Amazon didn't have a social platform or an app per se that like came in the social, when the social era came, but they launched AWS, which all the social media companies and all the big apps that came out used, right? So they found another way to monetize because they understood the internet and they knew where the internet was going. Whereas none of the Walmart didn't launch that product, right? So I just think, that's what Coinbase can do, I think, to just keep leading in this space.
Yeah. I think you're right about the institutional side of things, because they really have an edge there. They are a regulated company. They have their stock. They have to report on a quarterly basis. But when we're talking about retail, why should I become a Coinbase customer if there's a crypto native app where I don't have to do a KYC, where I have less fees and I can do cross-chain swaps, for example?
But,
something like that is already being built. So
right. And most of it's being built on Base. And most of these retail people are using Coinbase Wallet. So they're already building the UX and the right products for that. And then now what they have is, if you want to use Aerodrome, you can do it with 0 fees if you're a Coinbase One member. And so if I'm retail, why not go and have this subscription, like in my Amazon Prime subscription, but not be a Coinbase? I don't even have to use a Coinbase app. I can go use Morpho. I can go use Aerodrome. I think there's Dymo. There's like 15 on-chain products now that you don't pay fees for, or you get extra bonuses when you use it if you're a Coinbase One member, right? So like they're creating this like power, this network effect in their brand and in their products that like works even if you don't use the centralized exchange. That's the thing that I'm saying is like, I'm not looking at their exchange volumes anymore. Like I know that matters, of course, but they're also beginning to dominate on the on-chain world. And that's what
but
makes
you're
me so bullish.
restricted to Base. Not every builder will come to Base.
Of course
A
not.
lot of innovation in 2024 happened on Solana, for example.
Sort of. But yeah, absolutely. But can Base continue to beat all the others? That's the question. Right now, Base doesn't have a lot of competition. Like they have Solana and basically no one else, right? So like they're already way farther ahead than every big company in the world because they're the only one with a vibrant community growing on an L2, like growing on chain.
But
So
when
like
you are
it's a
using
big leg up.
like Amazon or Walmart, they are like companies who do like offline businesses where they need to build like physical, I don't know, products and have like logistics and like build the whole supply chain, and that's their mode. But for Coinbase, that's a software company in a world where we push for everything becoming open sourced, and code is feels like it's no more a mode. So like, it's a different game, I feel like, and it's going to be much harder to maintain that mode and like just having a huge market share of that huge emerging market. That's
completely agree. There's not much of a moat in this space with open source, but I'll say there's two things that they have a moat with. One is trust, which in the financial world is extremely important. Coinbase has $420 billion of assets on their platform at the end of 2024. That's 12% of the entire crypto market cap. They literally own almost 1/6 of the entire crypto ecosystem. Not own, they custody it. So like anyone who's not going to build their own infra, their own chains, they're using Coinbase today. MicroStrategy, the biggest holder of Bitcoin in the entire world, the biggest holder of all crypto in the entire world. Who do they use as their custodian? Coinbase. BlackRock, who do they use as their custodian? Coinbase, right? So like that is a moat because they have the trust, which is huge in the financial industry, especially for institutions. Maybe not so much for retail, right? But definitely for that. But then I go the Apple route. Why did Apple become so successful other than because they kept reinventing? They just created a UX with the Apple brand on everything you did on the internet. Whether you wanted to listen to music, you wanted to watch TV, you wanted to use your computer, you wanted to use a phone, you wanted to chat with people, they created the UX that everyone was familiar with. And although open source like Google phones and Samsung phones, et cetera, like the Android phones, people love that stuff. Like that could be better. And there's more features and it actually is better if you understand that. More people still use the iPhones and they would extract more value from it. And people would never leave it because you had a blue text instead of a green text, right? Like I've never left iPhone specifically because all my friends had an iPhone and we have a group chat that is iMessage. And if I was to leave that group chat, I no longer have a group chat with my friends, right? And so like they just happen to hit all these little important corners and build the UX for it. I also like my computer, I can airdrop from my computer to my phone. If I get an Android phone, I can't do that anymore. At least I can't do it natively, right? Or seamlessly. My headphones, they connect directly to my phone the moment I plug them into my ear. No other headphone can do that. So like, because they hit every aspect of the way that we use the digital world, they've built this moat. And I think that's basically what Coinbase is doing right now with Coinbase Wallet, with Base, with Coinbase app, with Coinbase Commerce, with the stablecoin, et cetera, et cetera. They're building this whole ecosystem. And I think they're really becoming, and that's why I think they're actually becoming the Apple of crypto, of the on-chain world, rather than maybe like an Amazon. But you could kind of point to both.
Yeah, that
right.
institutional demand and trust, I agree. Like that's what I'm really bullish to.
Yeah.
But
like Binance doesn't get that. Although I know Binance is way bigger. They're not getting that. I mean, maybe they do in Asia. I'm not sure. But I think the real institutions, what matters here is what's in the US. And I think they're undoubtedly going with Coinbase.
But the funny thing is that, that Bybit hack, it happened not because of Bybit, but because of Safe, which is multi-sig provider on Ethereum.
Yeah.
And I am like 99% sure that Coinbase custodians are using the same thing, the same software.
I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Most
a scary
likely,
world there. So that's the other thing is the trust can go away like that, right?
Yeah.
If Coinbase happened to be the one that did what Bybit did, then there goes their trust, and that would be insane. But God, I'm just praying to the Lord that never happens. All right. Well, that was a good chat. I think we covered a lot there. Anyone else have anything else they want to chat about? Or do we wrap up here?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate you guys all for joining. Hope you guys enjoy this conversation. And let's be patient because we got to work through a lot in the markets over the next little while here. But pay attention, right? This is when we grind and we pay attention to what's really happening in the space, like we just discussed in this episode. And that way you can be well positioned for whenever this bounce happens and we continue on at the bull market. So that's my main advice. But thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate the conversations.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thanks, y'all. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.